Hello, my friends. If you'll remember, a week or so ago, Amberlynn uploaded a video where she talked about inpatient treatment because somebody had asked her a question about that, and she said, "Man, that would be fun. I think inpatient would be a hootenberry, but it's just so expensive, you know? Just those inpatient treatment centers charging $100,000 to $250,000. Here in Oklahoma, that's what can you do, you know?" But it would be fun. I would love that. Well, let's just hear what she said first, and then we'll get into why it's absolute hogwash. If you'd like to like and subscribe, that would literally be hectic. I'm not going to lie.
Consider that your refusal to do inpatient treatment could be linked to a drug addict's refusal to do rehab. No, because I actually think doing inpatient would be fun. I know a lot of people are going to be like, fun, that's really the adjective you're going to use for that. The only reason why I choose not to do inpatient is because it is extremely expensive and I have a job. Not only do I have a job I have to do to keep the roof over my head, the electricity running, and the food in my fur baby's stomach, but I have fur babies that need to be taken.
Real quick, I know this isn't like a reaction video for this, but I love that she says, I have to have a roof and whatever, and food for my pets. Not her food. It's food for her pets, you guys. So I thought it was just funny that she said it would be fun and she wished she could. But this is where she actually says how much it would cost her. You ready?
How much would inpatient cost you? Anywhere between $100,000 to $250,000. That's why when people are like, Amberlynn, get inpatient, and they throw it at me like it's as easy as to like buy an apple and like eat it. I'm sorry, I don't have $250,000 to just throw it inpatient. I don't, and the insurance I have will not cover inpatient. And even if it did, I would still have to pay probably upwards to $80,000, and I just don't have that. All right, you guys, now let's get into the.
So, $250,000, she says, right? I mean, she gives the range of $100,000 to $250,000. And so then she says, I just don't have $250,000. So she goes to the high end of the already stupid estimate that she made. But let's just see, how much would inpatient really cost? Okay, so in this video, we're going to go over a couple of different types of inpatient treatment, okay? We're going to first talk about ED treatments, because just for the sake of this video, we're going to assume we're dealing with binge eating disorder. Now, we don't know if that's true, right? Part of BPD, assuming that she has it, again, a lot of this we're just going to give her the benefit of the doubt just to get the costs of this stuff. But let's just assume that she has BPD. That can cause binge eating, okay? So we're going to see how much it would cost to treat BED on its own. We're also going to see how much it would cost for inpatient for BPD. So there's a couple of resources I want to show you on the BED. So these particular resources are not for specific locations. These are just sort of giving people an idea of how much these types of things would cost sort of in general, like an average cost for if you went to a specific place. Because most places, like if you go to a website of a specific location or a facility, they aren't going to tell you how much it is out of pocket, right? And we'll get into this a little bit later. A lot of that is because they will actually negotiate with insurance companies, even if they're out of network. Now, if you don't have any insurance at all, obviously you're just going to be out of pocket. But Amberlynn claims to have insurance. She claims that it won't cover it. But if she does have any kind of insurance at all, a lot of times, even if they're out of network, they can negotiate discounts and stuff where they can come to an agreement to get a lot of it paid for. So that's why they don't want to give any prices on their website, because it's probably different for everybody, right? It depends on kind of how they negotiate and how they interact with whatever insurance somebody might have and stuff. So that's why they won't give you prices. So these resources, the things that I'm about to show you, are just sort of a generalized price, just kind of depending on where you go. So obviously it can vary, but this is what they have found as far as like averages and stuff. So first we're going to say, how much does intensive outpatient cost without insurance, okay? So it says about $250 to $350 per day. But then we go into how much does a partial hospitalization program cost without insurance. So this is one where they get to sleep at home, but they visit the hospital every day. It says the partial hospitalization programs provide structured care for patients who need daily medical and psychological assessment, but are stable enough to sleep at home. So without insurance, this says $350 to $450 per day. Now this is where it gets more expensive. the residential program where they get 24-hour care and they sleep on site, right, for up to 30 days. So this is without insurance coverage. These programs can cost upward of $1,237 daily, right? So $1,237 daily, or over $37,000 monthly. Now, obviously it says over, but I wouldn't think $220,000 over, you know. And then finally, we'll get to the cost of inpatient hospitalization, right? And this is not what she needs, I don't think. This is for patients who are medically unstable. I don't think that she would fall under that. I mean, she is medically probably not great, but I don't think she would be considered unstable medically. Mentally, maybe, but not medically. But this says without insurance, it can be found to be like a 14-day treatment with a total cost of about $20,000, okay? So if they, for some reason, went all 30 days, then it would be about $40,000. So I think the inpatient that we're going to assume that she would need is the residential program. That would be the most intensive, and that would be the one that's like $1,200 a day. So keep that in mind, that $1,200-ish. So this is another resource that lists BED, and it says, what are the common treatments for this? And it's psychotherapy, nutritional counseling, medical monitoring, etc. And it says, how much do these treatments cost? Treatment for EDs can range from occasional visits to a therapist to an inpatient hospital stay. Costs vary, obviously, as well. Hospital or residential facility stays are the most expensive. Now, residential facility is where you actually like live on site, and it's like a specialized facility for that, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's mental health, like personality disorders or eating disorders or whatever. And then the hospital is a hospital where they have all of the equipment and monitoring technology and nurses and doctors and everything on staff, whereas the residential facility mostly has kind of a limited amount of that kind of stuff. And like we were talking about a minute ago, where I think the difference really is that in the hospital stay, that would be for medically unstable people, so they can kind of keep an eye on, you know, if something, like if they have a code blue, right? If somebody starts flatlining, they can handle that better in a hospital rather than a residential facility. So it says an inpatient hospital stay can last about 2 weeks and cost more than $19,000 total. A residential facility stay for intensive treatment averages 1 month at a cost of more than $1,200 per day, right? So similar to the other. So we are looking at around $30,000 to $40,000 for the entire treatment, okay? And this is for BED. This is just for the ED. And let's just say she wanted to go to the highest rated place in Oklahoma, which we're going to get into some of those facilities here in a little bit. But, you know, let's say $2,000 a day. I mean, that's $60,000. That's still nowhere near $250,000. And there are several places in Oklahoma. There's a place called Laureate. There's OU Health, Living Hope. So this is Laureate. This is in Tulsa, which is like an hour or two, I think, from Oklahoma City. And they do eating related care. So that is the cost of inpatient treatment for just strictly EDs. So now let's talk about inpatient treatments for mental health issues or personality disorders and things like that. I got an email from Sarah, who is doing the good work out here and holding people like this accountable. You are a true hecticana. Thank you. Okay, so they reached out to, and we'll get to the names of the places and stuff, but I'm just going to go kind of in order of how the chat went and how everything broke down, okay? They got in contact with an inpatient treatment center in Oklahoma City, and they started a chat and basically just said, you know, and the chat was saying, you know, the first step is assessment and blah, 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 you know, the usual stuff. And it says, based on the issues discussed, the clinician will then make a recommendation for treatment and level of care for one of our inpatient or outpatient programs. I would be happy to set up an assessment. So then this person asks, and you can see it's Oakwood Springs is the name of the place, but we'll get into that in a minute. How much for the inpatient treatment if I do not have insurance? Okay, so we are talking out of pocket completely. is because Amber claims that her insurance just won't cover inpatient treatment, which, I mean, maybe, but I don't know, man. That seems, you'd think they would cover at least some of it. It says currently the cost of inpatient treatment at our facility without insurance is approximately $775 per day with an average length stay of 5 to 10 days. So, she thinks it's a month-long treatment, and there are some intensive treatments that are like that and stuff. But the thing is, there are a lot of different options that she just doesn't even look into. And she claims to be extreme on all of these symptoms and all of these classifications of BPD.
The intensity and severity of each part of the criteria is unique to each person. So I had to answer a ton of questions to see like where you fall on the spectrum, and I fell on extreme.
And if that were the case, she would need inpatient treatment. She would need some sort of guided treatment because extreme symptoms call for extreme treatment. So she just thinks, yeah, it's the only one that's available is a month-long thing, and I just can't do that, But if she would actually look into it, there are a lot of different options. And like this just says their inpatient treatment is an average of 5 to 10 days. And they probably have more than, because it says average, so they could go longer or whatever. But the point I'm making is that there are different options, but she's not willing to even entertain the idea. So, of course, part of the process is it says, please contact your insurance provider and verify your coverage for specific services. And it just says, here's what you should ask, which Amberlynn could do that. I guarantee you she has never contacted her insurance provider, if she has one at all, which I'm not convinced she does, because she goes to the ER for everything. But if she does have one, she has never contacted them to see if they would cover inpatient. So this is a completely in-network program. It says Oakwood Springs is in-network with most major insurance providers, and some that I had never heard of too. We also work with insurers on an out-of-network basis and have standing agreements that allow us to easily work with out-of-network providers at no additional cost to you or your family. We encourage you to call us to confirm the status of your insurance company. Our counselors are also available on chat 24/7 and are fully equipped to answer any of your questions about your specific coverage. So, and then it goes over the insurance companies that it covers. So there's a long list of insurance providers that they accept. I mean, some that you have heard of and some that you may not have, a bunch of random ones. And then, of course, we got Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, Cigna, Community Care, basically everything. Basically, what they're saying is, even if your insurance doesn't, like, on the surface say we cover inpatient treatments, they actually will negotiate with the insurance even if they're out of network. And that's pretty common, especially for these big like drug rehabs and just different kind of like specialized hospitals and mental health facilities and stuff. That's pretty common for them to negotiate with insurance because they know most people can't afford just to show up and go to a mental health facility just out of pocket. Amber could, but she wouldn't have to because they would negotiate with whatever insurance she claims to have. So this is Oakwood Springs. It is a mental inpatient facility, and it is in Oklahoma City. Okay. Looks pretty nice, Okay, so this is Integris. This one has a higher rating, so it might be a little bit more expensive, okay? But remember, at Oakwood Springs, the range was anywhere from $350 a day to $775 a day, okay? So just keep that in mind. So we can assume that this Integris is probably a little bit more expensive, right? So let's just be generous and say it's $1,000 a day, okay? Because that would be more than the high end of that Oakwood Springs that's a little lower rated, right? So this says, the cost of inpatient mental health psychotherapy near you can vary widely based on the facility, location, and level of care. On average, you might expect to pay between $500 and $2,000 per day, right? So it says this can add up to $15,000 to $60,000 for a typical 30-day stay. So think about that. At $2,000 per day, which is quite a bit more than any place in Oklahoma is probably going to be charging. I mean, I would be very surprised if that Integris that was rated a little bit higher was any more than $2,000 a day, right? I'm going to guess $1,000 to $1,500 a day. And they will also likely work with out-of-network insurers, right? They will negotiate the prices with the insurance companies, even if they're out of network. So even at the highest end, we could even like imagine in Oklahoma at $2,000 per day, that's only $60,000 for the whole inpatient treatment. But it is far more likely that the one that she would want to go to, one that's pretty highly rated and pretty nice in Oklahoma, is probably $1,000 to $1,500 per day. So we're looking at half that, right? We're looking at anywhere from $30,000 to $45,000 at the high end. And that's not including all the negotiations done with her insurance company that she claims to have. Now, are there inpatient treatment facilities that are $100,000 to $250,000? Probably. I think that's where like celebrities go. You know, those are the ones where you go to like Malibu, to a big like destination with a just huge mansion that you go and you're pampered the whole time and that kind of thing. Like celebrities go to those types of inpatient treatment facilities. But one that Amberlynn Reed could go to, and of course she would want the really like nicest one that she could get. She would want to make sure it's highly rated because you know her, she likes good things because that's unique to her apparently. But she could easily find one in Oklahoma that is nice enough for her, that is in this range. And obviously none of this really matters because it's not about how much it is, right? Because she has all these excuses lined up for why she would never go to an inpatient treatment facility. She's got her pets, and you know, there are a ton of options for her pets. There are so many places around Oklahoma City that could watch them. Her mom could watch them. That is not a difficult problem to solve. And of course, you know, she mentioned recording at the rehab facility, and I think we all know that that would probably not be allowed. Now, technically, it is not a HIPAA violation, right? Unless you were personnel. Like the nurses can't go around filming the patients and stuff. The patients legally, I guess, could film, but obviously just to be safe with HIPAA rules and stuff, they don't typically allow recording in the facility. And I think we all kind of assumed that. But I mean, she's taken breaks before. She doesn't do anything that's time sensitive. Right? She could just record for a few hours a day for a week, and she could then have enough stuff to upload for the whole month she's gone. Because she doesn't cover current events. She doesn't cover like new games coming out. She doesn't cover anything that needs to be covered right then. She just talks about nothing, talks about random crap anyway. I mean, she really only talks about herself. That's it. And how everything in the world affects her. That's it. So she could just schedule everything out for a month. But that's a lot more work than she's used to doing. So of course that would never happen. But no, if she wanted to, which we know she needs to, but if she wanted to, she could make this happen so easily. We know she will always have excuses lined up, no matter what we say. So all of this was just sort of food for thought. You know, this is just information that we can use. We arm ourselves with information, and then we just take that out into the world and do what we will with it. So anyway, I appreciate you guys so much. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.